Do you believe in magic? Spells, curses, and potions? I find it hard to believe myself, but let's get a bit broader. Miracles. Things that can't be explained, and things that can't be understood. I'm sure there's a few of those things that we agree exist. We all breathe air, but we can't see it. Our spines send electrical pulses throughout our bodies so we can move, but you can't feel that. What else can't we see or feel? Just because we can't prove something we see or feel exists, does that mean it isn't real? Clairvoyance, for instance, the ability to gain insight into the future through extrasensory vision. How can you tell if someone is really seeing into the future or not? That in particular is something I've always wondered about. And it's something that you might have seen a few times as well. At a carnival, an old lady with a crystal ball offering to tell you your future for a couple bucks. Or even a few small businesses you might have passed on your drive to work. Guaranteed results, the signs will say. Find your soulmate, enrich your lives. Around the central Tampa area, there are more than a few of those establishments. And I, knowing nothing about the future seeing community, was curious to really get an idea of just what services these places offered. I mean, whatever they are, they have to be good, right? How else would these establishments stay in business? How else would there be so many of them? The answer is one of two things. Either it's real, and these people really do have these psychic abilities, or it's not, and people are being taken advantage of. Well, what I found from making this documentary is that there's a third option. It isn't so black and white. And there's a lot more under the surface than just, is it real or is it not? I took to the internet to search for these places, to get an idea of what they do and how much they cost. And I was hooked immediately. The prices were high. Really, really high. And offering all sorts of things like Reiki or quantum touch something or other. It sounded like nonsense. It sounded fake and goofy and something that you would see on a Marvel movie. But all of the Google reviews had people raving. 5 stars, life-changing, saying that they make appointments often. And as someone who doesn't really buy into any of this metaphysical stuff, I had to find out if there was any truth to it. And the only way to do that was to try it myself. I tried calling all of the places that I could, but most of those calls went like this.
How can I help you?
Hi, my name is Thomas Ouellette. I think we've spoken before, or I think I've called before and I left a voicemail.
Yes.
I'm a student at the University of South Florida, and I'm doing a research documentary about metaphysics and psychics. Do you think I could ask?
No, I don't have no time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
No one wanted to talk to me, and naturally this only deepened my interest. Eventually, I found a group of people who were willing to help. A very well-reviewed shop by the name of Alchemy and Ashes. I spoke on the phone with Jason, one of the store's managers. The phone call was quick, and he seemed more than happy for me to come by and talk with one of his store's tarot card readers. When I got to the building, my nerves began to kick in. Why was it so easy to get an interview with this place when all of the other ones told me no right off the bat? They couldn't just be that nice, right? These guys were swindlers. They wanted people's money. They were saying they could read into the future. I entered the building, and I met Jason in person. And I also met Jen, the tarot card reader I would be interviewing. She gave me a tour of the place, and it would honestly be easier to list the things it didn't have. Charms, potions, cards, haunted knickknacks, enchanted jewelry. You could find something for every sort of paranormal or metaphysical problem you could have. We eventually sat down in her reading room for the interview. And my first question to her was a simple one. How did she become a tarot card reader? How did she get into all this?
I was about 16 years old, and one of the girls I knew at school was going through a bunch of her stuff and said, I don't want this tarot deck, but you look like it's the sort of thing you're into. And I had never read tarot or anything before, But when I picked up that deck and I started reading with it, it came to me. It was a duck to water situation.
You know, what would you say to the people who don't really believe in it?
I'm gonna pick this one for you. We're just gonna do a little experiment. If you're comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're comfortable.
No, I am.
This is nothing nasty, nothing magic, nothing bad. This is looking at a picture.
Yeah, absolutely. Look,
if you're okay with that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was afraid that I didn't want to ask can you do something for me? Because I don't want you to. I don't want to take money out of your pockets or anything like that. And so, what is this exactly?
What's he doing?
I'll show this to the camera real
Sure.
quick. This is the card I've got. 10 of Wands. Mm-hmm. Well, it looks like he's balancing some sort of stick sculpture. Mm-hmm. You know those things where you like the two forks you can balance over a cup. You know, you stick all the sticks together, and he's holding it in that perfect spot. To me, that's what it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Is it easy?
Doesn't look easy.
Does he look happy?
Looks concentrated.
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard work.
Yeah.
You just read a tarot card. I mean, literally, that's all it is.
And so what is that? So for me reading that,
mm-hmm.
What does that mean exactly?
Overburdened. A need to focus on where you're going to sort of put all those sticks in the future. You can't run around carrying all your sticks all the time. You make a little bundle, this is for the fire. You make a little bundle, this is for, I don't know, this stove. And then you go out and you get more sticks, but you can't just carry sticks all day.
And that's my fortune, or my reading.
Sure.
And, a big thing for stuff like this is traditionally religious people will see it as just evil or something like that. Mm-hmm. Do you, and I'm sure you've dealt with people who come here and say all your stuff is, but do you think there is a place for, you can be religious and you can still have this?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. This doesn't have a specific religion. Tarot is a nomad. Tarot has been back and forth all over Europe, and then it traveled out of Europe. So historically it has no connection. It was a game originally. So there's no there's no real religious association, kind of like how if you wear a cross, okay, that person is probably a Christian. If you wear a Star of David, that person is probably Jewish. If someone has a menorah, or if someone, practices a rosary, what those things mean. This tells you nothing.
Do you think that the telling controls the person, or the person is the one that controls the telling?
So it's going to say what it's going to say, and then it's up to the person to take it and use it. I can tell you the eggs in the fridge are bad, but if you go ahead and use them anyway, that's on you. So just because our circumstances are bad, just because we're in a rough spot, that doesn't mean all is lost, And maybe I'm getting ahead of the game here, but people will come in and say, will I find love? I don't know. What are you going to do about it? Do you want to find out how you can find love? Where you can go to meet people who share your interests and would be compatible? I don't believe, and I know there are some people who do, but I don't believe that your life is mapped out with little plots like a movie script.
One of the things I heard and when I called the other places is a lot of them will say our readers are they're vetted, they are certified. Is there a certification for this?
Oh, sure, there's certifications for everything.
But so that doesn't. From your tone of it, certification doesn't really exactly mean.
It's nothing to me.
No, it means nothing. Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, not to discount anyone who goes out and they want, that certification. That's great. That's expanding yourself. The more knowledge you have, the more experience you have with your craft, the better it is. But the proof is in the pudding. And I can take all the classes in the world, but if I can't help somebody through a reading, I have failed.
Okay. So, and I told you about the kind of crazy how expensive it can get.
Oh yeah.
And just with with anything. Like, there's evangelists for Christianity and everything. People who kind of take advantage of it.
Yeah, there are.
There are people like that?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know of any within the area of Tampa? Or any...
Oh, I would never name drop.
Never name drop, but...
I would never name drop.
But, like, would you say there's a couple that you're like...
I have met some people that I thought, how can they do that? How can they take like that?
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely an exchange of... We call it an exchange of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And back in the day, the saying used to be that you shouldn't perform a reading for someone without a silver dime passing your palm. So get paid for what you're doing. Don't do it for free. Don't give yourself away. Which is, I 100% agree. You're not going to do somebody's plumbing for free, so why should I do this for free? However, there's fair prices and there's stretching to take advantage.
The interview was informative, to say the least. Any idea I had of this practice being malicious was gone. I understood it. I still don't believe in it, per se, but I understand it. This helps people. It may look different from traditional help, and of course, like with anything, there are bad people who will do it and take advantage of people, but that could be said for everything. As a whole, this is a way for some individuals to deal with their emotional trauma if they don't have another way to do it. Jen was the nicest person I've ever met. The complete opposite of the greedy snake oil salesman I was afraid I'd run into. She showed me why this community has such a wide appeal. It showed me that if people are getting help and healing in their own way, it doesn't matter what it looks like. And it's hard to say no to money, especially with how expensive things are getting. But Jen masterfully answered the question in a way that showed me just how much she cares about her clients as people, not just customers. After the interview was done, I had one more question. Some of the places I called talked about having certified psychics and trained mediums. I asked Jason if he knew of a place that offered that training. He pointed me in the direction of a place that might have what I'm looking for. The place was called the Church of Harmony and Sacred Space. The reverend of the church was a third-generation psychic named Cindy Castillo. I called her, and she allowed me to attend the church's Sunday service. To preface this, I thought that what I got from Alchemy and Ashes was a deep look into the psychic community, but after just a minute of talking to the members of this church, I found out that I had barely gotten to the surface. This was really the breaking point for a lot of people. Intuition from cards? Sure. Talking to spirits? Getting full-on visions? This is where most people kind of bow out. Not me, though. I was invested now. The service went on like a traditional Christian one, but with the inclusion of metaphysics speakers and astrology readings. After the service, I learned that here, it was all about the transfer of energy and deepening one's understanding, and through this, opening your mind. Not exactly stuff I believe in, but interesting nonetheless. The church did offer the metaphysical training I had heard about, but unlike the other places I had seen, didn't make paying for this stuff the top priority. Their website, for example, even allows people to submit free prayer requests. Sure, you could pay for the extra stuff, like individual sessions, but it never felt like that's what they focused on. Like most churches, they wanted people to attend service and get enlightened, to leave feeling better than they did when they got there. I sat down with some of the church's members and talked to them about their experiences in metaphysics. It's one thing to believe in these things, but I wanted to know what they experienced firsthand. Penny Fletcher is a woman with over 30 years of experience as a reporter, and she's been part of this community for as long as she could remember. She opened up to me and told me about how she met Cindy.
This is how I know she's on the level. My supervisor had asked that I write this history of St. Valentine's Day. This was quite in advance of Valentine's Day, years ago, just after my husband died in the early 2000s. And I wrote it, and then he wanted me to get a page of stories, love stories from people in town. Okay, my husband was a commercial fisherman, and I was a freelance writer at this particular time I'm going to refer to. We had 7 kids between us and 2 family members, my foster/adoptive mother and his dad dying of cancer in our house. So we were rather broke, and his fish didn't bring in what he thought they would one day. And we're coming home from the fish house broke, and he stopped and he bought me a single rose from a vendor. And he handed it to me and he said, you know, that guy just told me that a single red rose means forever. And so when he was dying, I always kept a rose by his bed in a little vase. Okay, he's dead now, and I'm at the chakra center, and Cindy knows me from nobody. She doesn't know me. All of a sudden, she's talking and she says, message, and points to me. She said, there's a man behind you. He's large, he's handsome. Wait, he's handing something to you. And I just looked at her. She said, I can't see it, it's a single red rose. There was no way that she could have known that I was about to write that story, which I had already started for the lead story for the paper. No way. So she's the real deal.
A truly personal story from someone that I think really highlights how healing this can be for some people. I also spoke with one of the church's healing coaches, Jeremy McDonald. I asked him if he could put into words what this whole community was about.
But I will tell you this, is that there is a place where you get to in your meditation and in your mindfulness, as you want to call it, where you get to the point where you really understand the flow of energy and how it works. And so there is a cosmic acceptance. And so when when you are judging another person that's outside of yourself, you're actually not only limiting yourself, you're harming yourself, and energetically you're harming them. So you know that when you not accepting and allowing the energy, that's why they say let go, let go and let God, or let go and let spirit, or whatever you want to say, that you're blocking the flow of abundance in your life. And so that's where how I would take that statement. Like I said,
Similarly to Alchemy and Ashes, I had my perspective opened up. It made me realize just how much judgment comes when we're faced with something unknown. When a person does something you would consider different, you might imagine the person is different themselves. Well, visiting this place showed me that's not always true. If it wasn't for this documentary, I would have never guessed that any of these people were psychics. They didn't berate me with charms or spells, they didn't try to convert me or convince me of anything. They answered my questions like anyone would. I see why the practice is so big, and I've experienced the good in it. Unfortunately, to me, most of the big names out there aren't really after your best interest. But I think Cindy says it best.
But yes, there are people that try to use it as a tool of power, a tool of manipulation, but that's not what we're about, by no means.
Yeah. How would you say that this affects you?
I've never felt more welcomed by a group of strangers in my entire life. And despite the brevity of my visit, I feel like I can always come back, even if my beliefs are different. And I know that, sadly, not all places are like the ones I visited. But if you get curious, and you want to see for yourself, wherever you go and wherever you find them, I hope you get as lucky as I did.